city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I am here today with Ezra Parter, Jackie K, Brennan Vogt, and Evan Liu. We are representing the Mile High Hockey Lab and the off-season for the Colorado Avalanche. This is episode 106. We're still cruising right along, even though the Avalanche are no longer playing hockey, but now that just means we are talking about the off-season topics, and we have a ton of those on the table for you today. We'll talk a little bit about the firing of Pete DeBoer down in Dallas. We'll talk about the assistant coach search and what that means for the power play. Take a quick revisit of the Brock Nelson extension. Maybe look at the Cup final and how it's going, and talk a bit about Ilya Nabokov signing. Jackie, I did get your comment and your note there in our Slack chat, so we will put that on the docket. Thank you to the four of you for joining me on this wonderful Friday, and to those of you who are tuned in live, please be sure to, oh, look, we got two Jackies right now. Hang on. Please head on over to our website, milehighhockey.com, and check out all of our written material, and give us a follow on your preferred social media platforms, and go look at our entire catalog on Spotify and Apple Music. Oh my gosh, that was a long one. Let's talk Colorado Avalanche hockey. You guys are just dropping in and out right now. I don't know what's happening here. But I got some news of the day.
The off season for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start with the news of the day. Of course, I already kind of put on the table Pete DeBoer's firing. We'll talk about that. We also saw former Avalanche Dan Heinold be hired as an assistant down in Tampa Bay, Florida, which that means that he will not be the assistant for the Colorado Avalanche as their search continues. Tonight is Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final between Edmonton and Florida, with Edmonton stealing an overtime victory in Game 1 a couple nights ago. And, of course, that Brock Nelson extension and the Ilya Nabokov signing. So, Ezra, I want to start with you. I know you're here. I'm going to add you back. There you are. Ezra, what did you think about Dallas moving on from Pete DeBoer, and how do you think that will affect Dallas's success in the future? Excuse me.
Well, I mean, it follows the pattern for Pete. He gets a couple of years. If he doesn't win the cup, he's gone. And it's interesting because, I feel like Dallas obviously was very successful with him. And going to the Stanley Cup, the Western Conference Final a couple of years in a row is a huge accomplishment. Mm-hmm. I love that the Avalanche value stability in coaching. I think that's a good thing. I think more teams should do that. But Dallas is not one of those teams. They haven't been throughout Jim Nill's tenure, and it makes sense that after what seemed like a really odd interaction with a franchise player with Jake Ottinger, that they would choose the player and let the coach go, especially a guy with like DeBoer, who has a reputation for, not lasting too long in one place. So, he is a great coach, and they will have a downgrade of some kind with whoever they bring in next. But that next person might also be the person to unlock whatever it is that they need to move farther than the Western Conference Final. So it'll be interesting.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you there. Like, I think it's funny you say he has a reputation. He has a reputation for kind of being a goalie killer. Like what happened to Marc-Andre Fleury in Vegas, that's kind of something that's kind of gone under the radar. This isn't the first time we've seen DeBoer kind of fly in the face of the franchise goalie. Jackie, are you with us right now? I just want to be sure before I send you a question. Okay, Evan, you're going to get it then, my friend. So DeBoer, obviously he caught a ton of flack for pulling Ottinger in Game 7. That kind of feels like it could have been the tipping point initially, but then he kind of followed that up in a post-game presser where he basically pointed out that Ottinger had lost 6 of the last 7, and that it wasn't just about shaking it up. It was about having enough, quote, of a sample, large enough sample to think that Ottinger wasn't the right guy to go with in that moment. Do you think that had more to do with his firing, or is there even more to it than just that instance?
I feel like it's more, I think that was kind of the peak of it. I feel like things have kind of been getting up to that point. I feel like I remember seeing a comment about his comments after like Game 5 of that series weren't great either. And so that could have been part of it. But I really just kind of feel like it was the cherry on top. I mean, if we're being honest, you're right. He is a goalie killer, right? But I think it was also very interesting that he did not really take any blame. He threw his team under the bus, and that's I mean, yes, Pete DeBoer is a great coach, right? This is definitely a downgrade for the Dallas Stars, but man, to think that this probably wouldn't have happened if the Avalanche just played for 15 more minutes. He'd still be the coach. Let's be real. He probably would still be the coach. Yeah. So it's a blessing in disguise for the Avalanche, but it's very interesting. And that's why you go through all these exit interviews with players and staff. And I mean, I'm sure Ottinger probably had some things to say in that exit interview.
Sure he did.
I'm sure others did as well. And I mean, you look at the entire franchise as a whole. What does Jamie Benn do? Right? He's getting up there. He's on an expiring contract. He said he doesn't want to play anywhere else. Is he going to follow Pete DeBoer wherever he goes? Because someone's going to pick up Pete DeBoer. Someone's going to. Even if it's the Buffalo Sabres out here towards me, someone is going to pick him up. Does Jamie Benn follow him? Does he stay in Dallas? Does he retire? It's a very, very franchise-altering move that was 15 minutes away from not happening if the Avalanche had just hung on. So very intriguing. Lots of what-ifs.
I agree.
I don't think Pete DeBoer could even make the Buffalo Sabres a good.
Shots fired. Hope no one in Buffalo is watching right now, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're not. But I'll say this, like, Pete DeBoer is a really good coach. I mean, Ezra, you said it best. I mean, 3 straight Western Conference final appearances. Obviously, you don't win any of those series, but I mean, 2 weeks ago when the Western Conference final was still in full heat, I mean, it felt like Dallas was on a much clearer trajectory towards being not only a contender this postseason, but in the years to come. And now that the dust is settled on their season and Game 7 ended the way that it did, you do start to look at that roster and how it's constructed. And you look at that number that they gave Mikko Rantanen and the holes that they're going to have to fill in the meantime. And it's kind of a realization of the problems that Colorado might have had they extended Mikko Rantanen. Brennan, I ask you this. It's a kind of a would you rather. Would you rather be in Dallas' situation where you're playing with money to kind of fill out your bottom 6 and some defensive group? Or would you rather be in the Avalanche situation where you have a little bit of money to fill out your bottom 6 and your defensive core?
I'd rather have the money, but we can't forget about this, guys. I mean, come on. Do we all?
Oh, yeah. That's.
Do we all remember this?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's not the first time that Pete DeBoer has done that. That he's thrown his star goalie under the bus because he mismanaged a game or overplayed his goalie or something like that. So just saying, there's a trend.
Yeah. Jackie, what are your thoughts? I think I have you now loud and clear. How do you feel about this? Do you also think that those post-game comments might have been the nail in the coffin for Pete DeBoer here?
Okay. Do I exist? Yes.
I hear you. Yes.
All right.
Eureka.
Well, I guess it's not one thing that makes a team move on from a coach. So there must have been some areas of concern. It's interesting how teams behave when they perceive that they hit a roadblock. Some teams, it's even making the playoffs at all, like we just said, Buffalo. For the Avs, it's making out of the first or second round. For Dallas, it's making it to the Cup Finals. So I think anybody can look at that situation and say, gee, what a problem to have 3 straight Western Conference final appearances. But it feels like when you hit a roadblock, maybe you have to do something different. And I agree that the coaching carousel has gotten crazy, but there's also something to be said for making a change, being willing to make a change. I don't necessarily think the Avs need to fire Bednar, but I think 8 years is beyond the level of comfort. So, the question is this organization willing to make a drastic change like that? It's not the players.
Sure. And I think that is not something that is you can't talk about it, because I think this is a results-driven league, and if the Avalanche have this core and they don't achieve those results, you do have to start looking in other places to make changes. And the Avs have made changes in basically every area now, except for that position or that role within the franchise. Now, I'm with Ezra. I think that the Avs going against the grain in terms of showing loyalty to their coaching, to Jared Bednar in particular, is a really good thing, especially for the core. Because, Jackie, you pointed out that within the roster, how the active mercenaries can really make it hard to gel. Well, when you change the system altogether overnight, because you have an entirely different head coach and an entirely different approach, that cohesiveness that you used to hold on to is completely out the window, and you have to reform it. So there's less work to do in terms of this. There's a strong foundation in what the Avalanche have in the tandem between their core and their head coach. And so that, to me, is an important thing. It maintains them, to me, as a perennial playoff, and then a team who can find a way to formulate a roster that can make a run even next year. I'm there. It's finally happened, already happened, I guess. I'm finally back to the optimism, 8-0 optimist. I think the Avs are in a much better position to answer my question to Brennan, in a much better position than Dallas when I look at the roster on paper.
I would take Dallas's situation.
I would take Dallas's situation if they were able to sign all the guys they have right now under affordable enough contracts to keep them all, but they're not. They're going to have to trade Jason Robertson or someone else.
They're not trading him. They're not trading Harley either. Maybe they don't get to keep Duchesne and Ben and Marchment, but they're going to be able to keep their players.
Duchesne, Ben, and Marchment were among the most effective players in the Avs and Colorado. Maybe not Marchment.
Someone. Like,
I was going to say, don't you say Marchment.
Yeah. But my point is, like, Jamie Benn, Jackie, is the captain. So that is a big deal. Like, that is not just like losing,
I think
a couple million.
He'll probably come back for cheap. I don't think they need to worry about losing him.
Yeah.
They're going to lose.
I just think that the Avs fans are going to say, oh, no, the Avs are in much better shape. I mean, the whole reason why Dallas is even such a topic, I mean, I open Twitter, that's all I see, is Avs fans talking about Dallas.
Sure.
It shows a little bit of insecurity. I mean, let's be honest.
Okay, but no. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not, because the Dallas Stars were talking about us, fans were talking about us after they beat us. They were continuing to dunk on us.
It's the rival thing. I know that Avs fans don't have love for the Wild or the Blues either, but to the extent of discussing and dissecting their roster, it let's be honest, it's a little bit of insecurity.
Well, I mean, I'll get to. I agree with the dissecting and like trying to build their roster. I think that's a little extreme, but at the same time, like, you have to remember that a lot of Avalanche fans are also hockey fans. So it's interesting and fun to look at all these different rosters and these different approaches and wonder how can they do it. I mean, I'll say this: I'm excited for the future for the Avalanche in a way that I didn't think I was going to be about a month ago. So that is a good thing for me. And I honestly feel like this Pete DeBoer thing is a win for the Avs, because we apparently can't beat him. And
welcome back to the light, Adrian. It's nice over here. Yeah. I'm glad you're here with me. It's good.
He tends to stay in the Western Conference, so
I know. Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see where he ends up. Well, in the light of Jackie being like, let's stop talking about Dallas. Let's stop talking about Dallas, and let's talk about business for the Avalanche, which we saw the hiring of Dan Hinote down in Tampa Bay, Florida today. And Brandon, you had brought his name up a bit in terms of the assistant coach hunt here in Colorado. Jackie, I'm going to send this one out to you real quick because I feel like you may be the one that has a vision for a possible replacement for Ray Bennett, who was previously the Avs assistant. Is there anyone that is on your radar right now?
I mean, not really, because I don't pine for free agents or players or free agent coaches.
Sure.
I've seen the suggestion of Woodcroft, the guy who's fired from Oilers. So if you want to have a great power play, maybe look there. I think that would be fair. I just want either no former Avs players or no former Columbus employees. If we
Okay,
can
so
tick
you're
both of those boxes, then I'm probably on board with whoever they come up with. I'm expecting Brad Larson, to be honest, at this point. I haven't looked at the website because usually they like to add without announcing, just to make sure they sneak someone on there.
Yeah.
I didn't see anyone new, so I guess they haven't done it yet. I am a little surprised that High Note was hired by another organization. So were the Avs not interested, or just did Tampa have a better offer? I'm curious there.
I am curious as well, and I don't know how it works, but like, could he sign? Because I don't know how it works in terms of coaches. Like, could he sign a better contract, like with a different team, and just be like, actually, no, just kidding? Or is he, once he inks it, just like a player, he's on the hook for it, basically?
I think it's once you ink, you're inked.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it is a contract, but I just didn't know if there was like a difference.
Another organization if it's a promotion. So even if, say, he had a longer contract with the Eagles, he probably did. 1-year contracts are rare, I think, in coaching, at least 2 or 3. But because it's a promotion, then you basically are a free agent. Like, you can sign anywhere as long as it's a promotion.
Okay, well, go ahead, Brad.
And then also do keep in mind this tax-free argument comes up again. So also he's probably looking at, making a little bit more money this year. So tax-free, Florida, tax-free. So
I personally hate the tax argument, really.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that's the only reason. It could be also, I've heard Tampa's actually become a little bit more family friendly. So, coming from a few friends who have actually moved from there. So, they, that could be part of the thing, that he felt like his family, that was a good situation for his family.
Yeah.
I'm more sad about the fact that I'm not going to have the Dan Hinote experience anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's Florida, Brandon. So
but the Dan Hinote experience, I don't know if you guys have noticed that every interview I have done when Dan Hinote was there, he walked in front of the camera.
Yeah, because he knows exactly what you're doing and exactly what he's doing.
And we would actually start calling. I think it was like in the last couple months of the season, I started calling him out. We'd be in the middle of the interview. He'd walk by and be like, "And the Dan Hinote experience."
So he thought you guys were gonna pan up to his face and just get a quick close up of his pure beauty. So Jackie, you're stoked then that it wasn't Hinote, because you said you're not stoked, but he checks the box of not a former Av for you, right?
I mean, would he have been the worst? No, I would have understood. Like, he's been an NHL assistant. The Eagles had some success, and it wouldn't have been the worst. But
got you. Okay, that's fair. I feel the
table. Let's definitely put up the criteria.
Well, you put forward a couple of candidates. Ezra, what do you think about who you said? Woodcroft, and who else did you say?
Brad Larson. He coached in Columbus, so Bednar knows him really well. I'd be surprised if he's not at least on the list.
Well, Ezra, I have a 2-parter for you. What do you think of Jackie's suggestions? And the second part is, do you foresee Jared Bednar is being a little bit more hands-on in terms of the special teams. I know we've seen a glimpse into his process. He's a pretty heavy delegator in terms of how everything goes with the strategy, especially with the special teams. Do you see him having more of a hand this season, or is he going to bring this assistant in and let them take the reins? And could it be one of those two that Jackie brought to the table?
Well, I think that's kind of the decision he has to make before they make a hire, because if they are looking at a guy with experience who they want to trust to run the power play, that's a different conversation than if they're looking at somebody coming up from the AHL who they want to maybe groom to be a better NHL level assistant than somebody that they would bring in who's been there already. So it does depend, I think. But I think based on Bednar's track record, probably they're going to go veteran, and probably he's going to be hands off because that's his style. So somebody like Jay Woodcroft makes a lot of sense to me. I don't really know who's out there. I'm not, I pay pretty good attention to all the players around the league, but not so great to all the assistant coaches, which I think is probably fair. Yeah. So don't get mad at me for it. But
I think that's an unreasonable thing.
I would have the concern though, if you're more of a Bednar fan, is that if you bring in someone like a Woodcroft, then that's a path to make it a little bit easier to let Bednar go.
That's true. Yeah, and that's something that might be kind of a benefit to a Woodcroft. Is it says to Bednar, hey, look, we love you, we want you here, but we got to keep exploring other options if this isn't working. So maybe he steps it up in some way. Not that I think there's anything that he's done that particularly needs to be stepped up, other than, I guess, adapt to things in the moment, which we'll see what that looks like next season if he does have somebody over his shoulder like that.
Well,
it didn't really work out that well for, I think it was New Jersey who brought in Andrew Brunette to kind of be like the guy over the shoulder, and it just didn't seem like it made any. He didn't end up getting the job, so it didn't really work out too well. That situation isn't usually something that we see play out, where the assistant coach who was brought in to be kind of the next in line actually pans out as the next in line. But it is definitely an interesting concern.
Yeah, well, right now the Avs could do one of the funniest things in the history of hockey, and they could just get Pete DeBoer to come be the assistant. And and then the seat gets. Game 7. I was gonna say, then the seat gets real hot, and then you don't got to coach against him if you're Bednar. It's just a win-win right there. Evan, what are your thoughts on the potential assistant signings, and how do you feel about Bednar being more involved? Do you think that there's a reason for that, or do you with Ezra and you think he fits the style? Just keep rolling with delegating.
All I'm saying is I would not be opposed to Pete DeBoer. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that at all.
Dallas's power play was pretty good. I don't know if it had to do with their assistants, but
exactly. I think like Ezra, I don't know a lot about assistant coaches in the NHL, so sorry, I don't really have an opinion on that of who they could bring in, but I do agree with the fact that I think Bednar will be pretty hands off. He'll kind of let things roll out the way that they have been, and probably let whoever comes into that assistant role do that, and trust them to do that. As long as was mentioned earlier, as long as there is some sort of tweak if needed, because there wasn't really that, especially on that power play. And that was obviously the difference in that series. So if you find a guy that can maybe have multiple different avenues on how to score on the power play, throw teams off, do something like that, great, right? Yeah. I'd rather it be multiple different things that you're trying and it not working versus doing the same thing and it not working, and then it comes on then onto Bednar, and then it's it's a whole thing. So
sure,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm with you there. I think the cohesion is what's important, and I think, Jackie, you're keying on to something when you say somebody who's worked with Bednar before. That likely fits the criteria for what they're going to do. I don't foresee them hiring like a name that could be looked at as a guy to take his place. I think that would kind of fly in the face of not just doing that at a different time already. And so, that's kind of where I sit. But Brandon, what are your thoughts? And how do you feel? Do you feel like the power play will be a negative or a positive story next season for the Avalanche?
Well, it's going to struggle. We know that. because it's going to be a new coach for the first time in how many years.
Mhm.
So, it's hard to say who takes over, one, and then two, it's going to take a few months for him to get used to the new system, and then gosh, it depends on who takes over. But any change right now with the way Ray Bennett was doing things, I'm not mad at Ray Bennett. It's just, dude, there was a change needed to happen.
No doubt.
But the organization has had some success at the lower levels. I felt like there needed to be a promotion to congratulate that success. But I know that's not how KSE does it. So
Sure. Well, I mean, it's entirely likely that they talked to Dan Heino about filling his position.
It's true. That's true. And then it's just, and I know Sneaks probably doesn't want to give up the position this soon because he feels like he probably has something brewing in Loveland, but who am I to say, right? So
I like the Schneekloth idea because of them using the same systems up in Loveland. You know what I mean? Like, that is a good thing to me, but I don't know. Like, I need somebody who's proven that their power play can be electric, not just good, electric.
Well, on Schneekloth and also Woodcroft to an extent, the job of the head coach and the job of the assistant coach are very different jobs.
They are.
There's a, there are definitely head coaches who could slide easily into an assistant coach role, and there are going to be head coaches who absolutely can't give up that level of control. What Schneekloth's looking for is also an important question. If he's looking to be a head coach, then he's going to stay in the A. But if he wanted to be an assistant, maybe there would be an opportunity for him there. And same
I don't think he's been even an AHL head coach long enough. I think it's a little early for him, even though I wouldn't be surprised if the organization thought about him on some sort of path like that. I just think he hasn't even really been the AHL head coach that long.
Yeah. The thing I like though about it is like, who's going to know more about the guys who play for the Eagles than Schneekloth? Like when guys when they get brought up, I mean, I know everyone in the organization and the system should have a clear understanding of all the players involved, but this guy has watched all of these dudes night in and night out. So I think that there's a subtlety to that, and I think that could pose itself as an advantage in the event that the Avalanche do have to start filling these holes with call-ups, because the financial situation is not something that they're going to clear up in like one or two moves. They're going to have, and it's not going to happen, I don't think, before the season starts. I mean, we saw a couple years ago, the Avalanche just kind of went to bat with who they had on the ice and Mikko Rantanen when Nathan McKinnon went down and just said, like, we'll see how it goes for 3 months. And then they started to kind of pick it up. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of that this year, because with the guys,
I think they definitely need to stop with the temporary team plan. Like, I think that was part of the problem this year. Like, I don't think that's a good idea just to say, like, oh, we'll trade out of it later, because it's so hard to make in-season trades, especially early, because other teams aren't ready to make those moves. Like, they were so lucky they were even able to get Blackwood, but they knew it because San Jose was terrible and they were willing to do it. But if you don't have that, you don't have a trading partner. So for me, what I want to see is them solve their problems. I don't want to see more trade deadline, top 4D, like either get one or don't. I want to see them solve the problems. Like, you made the problems, solve them. So I completely don't want that approach. Like, this is your time to figure it out. You made the decision. You spent the money on Brock, so figure it out.
Well, thank you for bringing that up.
Temporary plans is just going to dig the hole. It's just going to keep digging the hole.
Sure. Well, you mentioned it. They've made a commitment to Brock Nelson. And Evan, you were able to join us briefly for our extension reaction episode on Wednesday, I believe it was, or Tuesday. Tell us, have your thoughts changed at all? How have they evolved? Where do you sit on the extension for Brock Nelson, which came in at 3 years at $7.5 million AAV?
Yeah, you know what? My position has changed a little bit. Granted, thank you for my internet for crashing right after I told everybody what I thought.
Well, you live with 12
which
people,
is-
dude.
I do live in a big house now. It's lovely. I will say my position's changed a little bit to be more positive. I didn't love it at first. If you'd asked me initially what I was looking for, it would be like a 1, maybe 2 year prove it deal, which for a little bit cheaper, which didn't happen. 3 years, I've come around to like it a little bit more, a 3-year deal, and I've come to like it a little bit more just because like the UFA class is terrible. Like there's just nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was, and I think I saw the other Evan Rowell say this. It was either Brock Nelson or pray to God that Sam Bennett comes for so much less money and picks you, right? And that just wasn't going to happen.
Couldn't even get Dan Highnote to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So, like that was not going to happen at all. So they have what they have, and my position though still stands on the fact that they had to make this signing simply because of everything that they gave up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the kind of like what Jackie just said, they kind of made a problem out of that, and now they have to fix it. I think this somewhat fixes it. Definitely does not fix it all the way, 100%. But you at least have some structure now, and you can try and build around that. The center depth is going to be big now. Like I mentioned, you now have McKinnon, Nelson, Coyle for now, and Jack Drury for now. It sounds like
did they even
everyone
bother with Coyle in the first
so
place?
it's
The Nelson
like-
trade was made first.
Yeah.
So are you saying you literally were that desperate to never have Middlestat play for this team again? Is that what it was?
I don't know.
Are we
I have no
admitting that? Are we admitting that he was so bad and so toxic they had to get rid of him? Because this move was made because now you have a third liner that makes $5.3 million.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
I
you
think
add
it
the
was
other
truly
liners. They have a
that
third
was
line,
truly-
not even a scoring third line, but a grinder third line that's going to be
Yeah.
making $12 million.
I think that was all about trying to win the cup last season. Straight up.
Yeah.
I think that they
But-
wanted to be the deepest team up the middle period in the playoffs, and they thought that did that for them. But finish your thought, Evan.
As I say, well, now they have that depth, right? Now,
Mhm.
now that's there. Can it go in the regular season? I don't know. I think that's more of a Brock Nelson question than anything, because he is at that age and he played, I don't know, what was it, 20 games with the Avs before they got eliminated. So getting a training camp, getting a summer of training, you know, with the likes of McKinnon, with the Landeskog, with the Nichushkin, like that will hopefully help him and kind of get him used to the system. And I mean, that's really all you can hope for at this point. I still don't love it, but I like it more than I did a couple days ago. So
Well, and
That's
that's
fair.
assuming that he stays here.
Hmm.
He may go back to Wisconsin or New York.
Yeah.
For the offseason, you mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he'll stay here. I bet you he moves here at this point. At least it's like a summer home. I mean, all the guys in the NHL love to go to Vail in the offseason. So that's the thing. It's because of golf, guys. It's not because of golf. That's why.
Yeah, I was joking with my son because we got done skating yesterday, and I was like, "Okay, time to hit the links," and he's like, "What?
What is that, Dad?
Yeah, what does that mean?" And I'm just like, "Never mind, dude."
mini golf. Mini golf.
Yeah, like he did, it just went.
Right over his head.
Yeah.
Well, what about? I'll just open it to the rest of the panel. Jackie, I know that you kind of were already in the camp of the Avs shouldn't try to make up for their error and just re-sign Nelson because they traded Richie in the first. You still feel that way?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, Brendan, and
I
you're
don't think the difference between Coyle at 2C and Nelson at 2C is this massive upgrade that people are acting like it is.
I hope you're wrong. I really do. I really do. I think one is a 30-goal scorer a couple times in his career, which poses the potential for that gap that others are pointing to be something that's real.
I mean, Coyle had 60 points 2 years ago and 26 goals.
Sure.
So, I mean, if
Yeah,
we're
but
looking
that's
at both their
once.
career high.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but
Yeah.
we're also looking at Nelson's career high. And
Sure.
Coyle also did this 2 years ago, not 8-10 years ago. So,
Yeah. Johansson was a
Nelson
30-goal
worth
scorer
more?
too.
But I'm saying the difference.
Yeah.
Well, for me, the difference
And
is-
Nelson's going to be able to maintain that as he enters 34. Like, I know
Yeah.
he's not a bum. I know he's not washed up. but we're talking about a level that they're paying for. He's the third highest player on the team. What level does he have to uphold to make it worth it?
Sure.
Yeah, I get that. For me, though, the difference isn't between Coyle at 2C and Nelson at 2C. It's between Nelson at 2C and Coyle at 3C, or Coyle at 2C and I guess Drury at 3C, or maybe Colton. And if it's Colton, that's a question mark because his effectiveness at center has there's a reason they haven't trusted him there, right? I don't know what it is. We've liked some of what we've seen, but there's a reason that the coaching staff, who knows him well, has not trusted him there. So to me, I look at it as they looked around the league at the teams that are successful and they saw, oh, it's not a great 1C and a bunch of guys. It's a great core down the middle that makes a Stanley Cup champion or a Stanley Cup contender.
I think it's a great 3 lines. I think the thought of that you have to have 1, 2, 3, I think that's an archaic way of looking at it. I think you need good players. And
well, yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean is
having Coyle at 2C or Nelson is also if Coyle's at 2C, you have enough money to get an entire good player. Sure. That would make a difference.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, if you look at it as they need to have 3 good lines, then a guy who you think could be a 2C as your 3C is much better than a Colton or a Drury. So it looks like they are building in that way towards 3 strong lines.
You're just missing the other good player. So you don't have
and so I posted.
I'd be remiss. I was just going to say, I'd be remiss to not give Brendan the floor.
2 days before Nelson signed that Colton should be 2C, something like that.
I believe
you got raked through the coals.
Yeah, and I got dragged.
And we've talked about that a lot on the show. I think we all really like Colton at center, but the team clearly doesn't, and there must be a reason that we're not seeing.
And I was like, okay, he's a point per game player on average, and he knows how to drive the game through 200 feet, and he's cheap.
Mm-hmm.
He's $4 million compared to $7.5.
$5.3 million.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So the point per game for him did come mostly on the top line or second line wing role.
Yeah.
Not
second line.
Well,
right, but as a wing.
I know we want to repress Middlestat, but he was the second line center.
Yeah, but Middlestat was Middlestat, so
I know, but I'm saying that's what he was doing.
Right, and it wasn't working to the level that the coaching staff wanted. Whatever.
That's also a concern that they have this vision that the 2C is going to be like, like the second or third best forward on the team, and that he's going to do all this. Like Nelson didn't even PK. They had Nelson we talked about on the second power play unit. So they have this vision that this guy is going to be worth the third highest paid player on your team. They weren't even playing him like that.
Well, that was with Ray Bennett as the assistant. So maybe that's something we see change. Because I'm with you, Jackie. I think that is why I was like, don't re-sign him, because you guys didn't use him to the tune of what you're going to have to pay him if you pay him. Now they've paid him. So now they got to use him the way he's paid. And I know that that's not necessarily the way Bednar works. As we saw Miles Wood get healthy scratched at his $2.5 million kind of on a night in, night out basis towards the end of the season. He got his money's worth a little bit, but never in the playoffs and never the 3 months before that. I know he's got his back issues and whatnot, but it's just, if people have brought him to the table about a cap dump, it's like, no one's going to take it's going to be a huge loss in terms of a trade, because you're going to have to package someone with Miles Wood for them to take Miles Wood off the books. It just feels like not a good idea. But I do want to move on to the Nabokov signing, because Jackie, you brought that to the table in the Slack channel. What do you think, Jackie, initially about that? I know that you, for one, were kind of concerned about, you're always concerned about how the Avalanche show loyalty to their prospects. Is this a step in the right direction for you with Nabokov getting his entry-level contract?
I mean, it's not a bad. I'm going to say no, but it's not like it's a step in the wrong direction. It's just they've always been into their prospects initially. They've had a track record of getting Russians to sign, so it's getting them to stay. So it's hard to say at this point. At this point, no, they haven't done anything wrong. I know that even McFarland's talked about how much that they are hopeful about Nabokov, so that's nice. I do believe that they're high on him. They see him as part of the future. It just, we have to see how that part plays out. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the contract. They did what they did with Kovalenko. They signed him for the 2 years, but he's going to go back for a year. And I think that's a new kind of approach, and I think there's some confusion with that. So it does use a year of the contract, but it's interesting because him signing now, it's a 2-year deal. It's always based on your age. So there's no negotiation in how long an ELC is. It's always based on your age. If he had signed, say, next summer, it'd be a 1-year deal because of his age. So either way, the Avs don't lose a year by signing him. So it's a good idea because you can get the paperwork done, the work visa, so that he truly can come over when the season's over. So we could see him come to Loveland. Now we'll see how much they play him or what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, he could go to Colorado or the Avs would back up. All things are on the table. It's just a matter of how they want to use him. But I also think Nabokov might not be too interested in the AHL.
Right.
So
most Russians aren't.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's already won a Gagarin Cup with
exactly,
and
he's
in the
a
KHL.
starter.
Yeah.
So I do think the arrangement's a good idea. Maybe we'll see him at development camp. That would be nice. He won't be there at training camp. The KHL season starts way too early for that.
Sure.
But so these are all good things. It's just a matter of what is the vision for the path for him to the NHL. Like, if they want him to take over Wedgwood, he probably needs an AHL season, or have they negotiated out of that? So I think all that's up in the air. But right now, it's a good situation, though.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Avs roster and I look at, even further down in terms of the prospects as it pertains to the positions. And like the goalie room right now feels super secure. I mean, you even got Trent Miner, which I know he's got to be signed. But I mean, just from down low all the way to the actual starters for the Colorado Avalanche, like the goalie situation is pretty locked down, which is a positive thing because, they made a clear, I guess, attestation towards making that a priority this season. And now we see that. I mean, Nabokov, for those who don't know, obviously he does play in the KHL. He's 6'1", 179 to 185 pounds is how he's listed, somewhere in that range. He in 2024, when he won the Gagarin Cup with Metallurg, I think is how you pronounce that. He went 16-6 with a 1.82 goals against average and a crazy .942 save percentage with 4 shutouts in those 22 games. And I know it's the KHL.
The KHL stats are a little inflated. Like Francouz, when he came over, had like a 950. So
yeah,
I'm not to say those aren't good stats because they are. It's just
they're gaudy, but they're explainable from the league. Yeah,
a little context there, and it didn't quite have the same year this year, but the team wasn't as good. Like he still had a successful season. It just he didn't quite have like an MVP season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Evan, as I mentioned, the Avs are prioritizing the goaltending room, and it's happened. What do you see as his path to the NHL? Are you in agreement with Jackie that he probably has a focus on a more, rapid path to the NHL?
I feel like that's really not the only option, but one of the only options that he has. Just because if you look at the contracts specifically, Blackwood's set. He's set to go, at least for now, unless he gets the Mikko Rantanen treatment. Good Lord, English is hard. It's been a while since. And Wedgwood is up after the end of this upcoming season. So if they want him to be the backup after Wedgwood, I mean, you could. That is definitely a little rushed. I wonder how he would do. I feel like he wouldn't be Kovalenko, where he would just kind of come into the lineup once he's not hurt. Maybe he'll get a few games in the AHL and then do that. But even then, when that happened, Kovalenko, I feel like wasn't the best, especially at the start when he kind of jumped in the playoffs. And I think that was pretty understandable. I don't think they would put Nabokov in that situation. I feel like he would need some time in the States to play with the Eagles, be able to go with UC Parkala and all those guys to get the training and work with the guys. So I feel like that they could rush him because you have to think about it too. This is like your only top prospect left in the organization. This is basically it. So
that brings me.
If you want this to work, you kind of have to put your all into it.
Well, I was going to say that brings me to my next question, and it's you putting it on a tee right now for Ezra and me. Last time they had one really good and valuable prospect, they traded him. Do you think that this ELC makes Nabokov a more attractive trade target to other squads? And given the fact that he is seemingly on a trajectory to maybe be a starter, do you think it's more likely that a team would take a chance on a guy like Nabokov in a trade and be willing to trade a bigger piece?
I just want to point out, Francois only spent a full year with the Eagles.
Yeah. He was old, though.
Also, yeah. He was also like,
hey, watch your mouth, dude.
Yeah, he was not a young
man. You got 2 older people down here.
I'm old,
dude. Old. He was old.
Yeah. Well, Ezra, back to you though. Like, do you think Nabokov closes himself as a trade target now that he's under an NHL contract?
I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it, right? Because on the one hand, yeah, that's a guy who's already under control for a team that might want to acquire him. So in that sense, yes, but it's also a guy who is already under control, but still in Russia,
Sure.
and could theoretically just not come over. So I think it doesn't really change that much in terms of his trade value, because either way, you're going to have to get him over from Russia,
Sure.
whether he had a contract or not. It might give him what it does do though is make him a contract that would need to be traded for a contract, most likely. Mm-hmm. So if they were looking at a trade where they were bringing in a contract and they needed to get rid of a contract to do that, that could make him a better piece in terms of trade value in that sense. But genuinely, I don't think that this changes much about his likelihood of being traded. I think it's pretty low, but man, I've been wrong about almost everything, so who knows?
No, I would lean in that direction. That is a little bit
that's
more
what it
certainty.
took for Kovalenko. Yeah,
it's a little bit more certainty because it's an NHL contract. So if you trade him, the team does have some control because he's on that contract. But like goalies, they don't really have value till you have NHL experience. Like it took Annunen getting that little bit of NHL experience. Otherwise, I mean, maybe a team would have interest, but you're really not getting value out of a goalie on a contract until he's done that, and then it's a 1-year ELC, so then the control goes back to him. If he doesn't like a situation, then he's probably definitely out of there. So and the Avs tend to trade prospects after they've gotten over them, so I still think that they're like excited about it. So you'd be talking kind of like in a year. I don't know. I guess not. I wouldn't say that now it's like, yay, we have another trade piece. I guess never say never, but I don't think so either. I think that they're going to see it through for at least like a year or 2.
Well, he got passed up on in 3 different drafts because he was too small, according to the NHL scouts. And then the Avs got him in what was considered kind of a surprise pick. Brennan, you mentioned Francois earlier. He was a smaller goalie. How do you feel about all of that critique?
Well, I want to also point out that, he got passed up in 3 rounds, but Francois is the one who spotted him.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of, I think Evan is the one who pointed it out initially when we were both with Mile High Hockey. He's like, this is Francois's pick.
That's right. He did say that.
He was on the radar though. Like he was going to get drafted. Like
it's just like Evan had pointed out. It's like Francois was part of the scouting team, and this is Francois's, like one of Francois's first picks. So they may, just because of that reason. And I'm not saying for like just because it's Francois, but like just to give Francois a chance, just hold on to him for that 1 year. and just say, okay, let's see what you can prove to us and see if you've got a good goalie eye or something like that as a scout, not just as a player.
I think I even had him in my draft plan. I didn't think I said second round. I might have said third round, but so yeah, he was definitely going to get drafted at that point. As far as the size, I think it's funny. They've always drafted these big guys, but a lot of their goalies have been the smaller ones, like Georgiev. It's funny that maybe they kind of accepted it, that there's a difference between like drafting these ideal guys and maybe looking at reality of who actually plays in the NHL and gives you value at maybe a smaller size.
Yeah. What's funny is it's really about tall, because like Bobrovsky is like 180 pounds soaking wet. And if you look at pictures of him in the locker room without his gear on, you're like, wait, that's what Sergei Bobrovsky looks like out of his gear. So, I mean, if you're small, if you're just, skinny, they just stack you up with the largest pads in NHL history. And if you're tall, it just looks like you're a massive human being. I mean, Andrei Vasilevsky's he's big, but he's kind of the same way. He's lengthy.
But there's limits to what they can give you.
And they push them as much as they humanly can.
And I'll speak from experience, because there was one beer league goalie that I played against, and he may have been like, I don't know, Evan's size.
That Geico commercial.
Yeah, he was like Evan's size. And then but he had pads that literally like took up the whole freaking net. And I was just like, dude, what? And then he took them off one time. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's like a Russian nesting doll situation.
Yeah, it was.
Well, that's exciting though for me. Like, I like that the Avalanche. I like the approach of like growing guys in Russia, especially when you have shown success in getting them to come over and play for you, because I do think like you can look at the KHL as a development league, and one that maybe is a little more high intensity in terms of the atmospheres than the AHL. So I think like in terms of like showing up in the moments, there is a little more progress made when a guy is playing in the KHL than they are in the AHL. And that's just my layman looking. I've never been to Russia to watch a KHL game, but I do know that they take it very, very seriously out there. As hockey's a big deal in Russia. Speaking of, Russia won't be allowed to play in the Olympics that are coming up in Italy, which is a downfall for fans, but let's just say it makes sense considering the world affairs. But that we won't see Crosby versus Ovechkin in a world competition.
Are they going to be not under the Russian flag, and then they're going to be like
the Russian players period are not allowed?
Okay, so they're not going to be like under the Olympic flag, and they're not going to be like
that was because of like doping. This is because of the war. So it's like
okay, yeah, because I was always confused. It's like, okay, they're not allowed, but they're here.
And that was more the Russian Olympic Committee got banned because of the doping scandal. This is more Russia and all of the people in there, and part of that are not allowed to participate.
So, that was always confusing.
The Europeans won't compete against them.
Correct. So, yeah, they'll boycott, and so you'll lose 20 other countries, and that won't be probably good for the rest of the games. But let's move on to the big game tonight, which is Game 2 between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. Ezra, what'd you see in Game 1? What do you expect tonight in Game 2?
I was impressed with Edmonton. I really I did not think after the first period going into the second period with down a goal that they were going to be able to push it, even though, Edmonton obviously has all kinds of offensive firepower. The way Florida got through Carolina, I really thought they were going to be able to clamp down and control the end of that game and not cruise to a win by any means, but hold them off. And that didn't happen. It was an incredible overtime. It was a really great goal from Draisaitl. They've got a lot of pieces. Now, I don't know that changes my opinion going into this series that I think Florida will win again, because I still feel like they have the more complete team. I didn't think either of these teams would be here, frankly. So,
I thought Florida might. I didn't think Edmonton was gonna. Yeah.
Edmonton's been able to get through the Stuart Skinner experience because he's been mostly good. And if he keeps that up, that's huge for them. Obviously, good goaltending is very important, but also specifically for that team, they have kind of everything else going right now. So if he can stay hot, they can really do it. It's so hard to trust him that I still feel like I think we're going to see Florida, come back from this 1-game deficit and make some hay, but we'll see.
Brennan, don't just, you know what?
I don't even know what that is. I thought
he
it was
just wrote number 63 on a white sheet of paper, and so that was the silent Brad Marchand right there. That's pretty good, Brennan. I liked that one. That one was sneaky, and I was like, "What is he taking notes on?" Oh, Ezra's writing. What is he writing? Oh my god! Gosh darn it. Well, I think let's just do our bold predictions real quick too, and we can surround them about the final, which will give everyone a chance to talk about it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, before we do that, because we haven't touched on this yet, Logan O'Connor.
Yeah, I bring that up too. I think maybe just take a smidge step back to this.
Yeah, before we get that, because Logan O'Connor, in case folks didn't see it, I think it came out a few hours ago now, that he had hip surgery here in New York, in the city, not where I am.
I was gonna say, isn't that like far away from you?
Far away, but it's a second hip surgery, and I really hope it's not the same hip, because that's the second one in like a year.
And he was not the same guy for 40 to 50 games because of the last hip surgery. But Jackie, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, it will never not seem bizarre to me that it's standard practice to announce the doctor and the hospital where they were at. To me, that's private information.
HIPAA violation, right?
In every I'm not criticizing the Avs. Every team does it, but I just think it's so strange. I don't get why that's standard practice. I think
it's the doctors probably want it. As weird as that is, it's like an advertisement for the doctor.
Well, because
why should you know where somebody is? Like, then that's where he is.
Because then the next guy who needs that exact surgery is like, I'm gonna go to the guy who did Logan O'Connor's.
Channels for that. They don't have the agents that know who's the good surgeons. Like, why do you need to put it on Twitter? But anyway,
it's so funny that we spend like all season we get no information, and then in the off season it's like this doctor, this location, they were under for this many hours. It's so weird.
And that's the funny part is like the doctor that I did my back surgeries with, that I think he's done Broncos, a couple Broncos, but you wouldn't know because the Broncos don't announce that. But the only way that he can announce it, or that he gets that around, is by him telling everyone. It's like, I did surgery on a few of the Broncos. It's like,
I guess I kind of wonder, why are the Avs telling us? Because usually they would just be like, no, I mean, I'm off the doctor thing. Like, I just had to mention it because I always think it's absurd. But
it's funny.
But telling us at all.
I think they're telling us because they don't want us to trade him. They're like, you can't.
He's under a new contract until 2031.
No, I just mean the fans can't call for his trade if he's hurt again.
To put this back on a hockey track here. To put this back on
anyways. Look at the squirrel.
This is a big loss for the Avalanche. This is a guy who was leading the Avs in points in the playoffs this year.
Crazy
with a shorty for the majority of the playoffs, and that is pretty insane. Playing through whatever he's playing through with his hip, so that's a big loss. It's 5 to 6 month recovery, so I think he would be on track for a return sometime in November or December. However, if I'm not mistaken, I believe when he went through this last year, he came back at an earlier time than anticipated too.
Yes.
Well,
if they wanted to go through that again, they could, but I mean, regardless, though, it's a really big loss for that bottom six, and maybe it gives you a little bit more to play around with in terms of cap space. Maybe
that's exactly what I put in my article.
Is that why they told us? Because
probably justify the LTIR.
Use it on, even though they really prefer to bank cap space because they can send everybody down every day. And like, would they be an LTIR over 2.5 million? But it does give them at least the option.
At this point, they better. They got 1.2 to deal with, and they got holes. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think it makes most sense to do so.
And it's not like they have signed Sam Malinsky and then anyone, it's not like they can send Sam Malinsky down because that boy be snatched up right away.
Yeah. Yeah, he would.
He'll still be here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you get my point. Like if they signed him and then wanted to send him down to save money for a couple
I'm talking
days.
about the others, the fodder, the people they call up. Bardakov is probably going to get transacted like 13,000 times.
Right.
It wouldn't be him. It'd be the next version of whoever, the vets, because all the vets are going. So no more Wagner, Tynan. They all got to go, but it's just going to be the next wave.
Or they get signed with the understanding that you ain't coming very much.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
think
they
that's
do,
probably
though.
yeah. Then they'll probably have to. I know, Jackie, you don't want the Avalanche to take the approach where they don't solve all their issues before opening night, but I don't think they'll have a choice. I think because it's going to take more than one move. Because it's going to take more than one move, and they're not going to. I think if they learned anything, they're not just going to pull the trigger like they have in the past. They'll see what else can kind of come to the table.
Why can't they? Why can't they string two moves together in the next 3 months?
Well, because we're going after only Oilers and Panthers, duh, and we got to see how it shakes out. I'm just kidding.
On the O'Connor thing, though, it does seem like it's crazy that this is another offseason where we know there's a guy who's going to be out for the beginning of the season. It's really unfortunate luck.
But that always happens. Like all the teams that went deep in the playoffs have somebody that I mean, I know
but
we went go deep. But,
so deep.
But it's pretty typical for teams to already know that they don't have somebody available. It's not that unusual. Injuries happen.
All right.
Yeah,
let's
it's just
do bold
unfortunate.
predictions. Let's do bold predictions because I got to hit it. I love you guys so much, but I got to go. And I want to spin the track. In this week's bold predictions, I want to do final score predictions for tonight's game 2. That's what I want from all.
I haven't even watched a game.
I'm going to even better. The less you know, the better probably you will be at this guessing game. So let me roll that bold prediction track as we turn the calendar on our bold predictions and we have a fresh sheet.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I call that bold talk.
All right, Jackie, I'll start with you. And let the record show that if you are correct about this bold prediction, I will have a surprise for you on our next episode. So
just the score. Let me reiterate. When they were at Final Four, I said McDavid's winning the conference.
Yeah, you did.
So let's just roll that one again because that one's just gonna happen for sure. Tonight, I don't know. I feel like Edmonton's going to win again. As much as I don't want them to. Is it going to be another close game? I'll say no. I'll say 4-1.
Yeah. All right. 4-1 Edmonton from Jackie. Ezra, what about you?
I'm going to go 6-4 Florida.
Ooh, I like it.
And just to spice it up, Barkov gets 2 points.
I like it. Evan?
I'll say I want Puck Colson to score. I'll put that one out there. That one's going to be like my bonus.
Fair.
The only player I like on Edmonton is Puck Colson. The only player I want to see lift the cup is Puck Colson.
Mine is AJ Greer for Florida. That's it now.
Oh, he's not back till 3.
They're game 3, but he'll be lifting the cup, baby, if they win it. I tell you that much. Brendan, Evan, what do you got for me?
I'm putting up a picture of that. I'll tell you all, if you hear me, that is going to headline an article.
Okay, here we go. Evan, what you got?
Colson too.
All right, for me, I think Florida gets back on track and they show what they've had before. I'm saying 5-2 Florida tonight.
Any goal scorer guesses? Since that's kind of the
we'll do another former Evan Rodriguez.
Another Evan. Don't act like it was because he's an Avalanche. Yeah, he's been playing. You didn't see him smirking in the opening lineup.
He loved it so much. Yeah. He loved it so much.
He's been pretty productive too.
Yeah. Brennan, what you got?
Florida NOT 3-2.
Ooh, That's
With
going to be a
Brad Marchand as the winner.
There it is.
And there it is. And there it is. All right. So we got 3 Floridas and 1 Edmonton from Jackie. I am going to go against my hopes and dreams, and I'm going to say Edmonton wins, and I don't think it's going to be very close either. I'm going to say I think this might be one of those crazy ones that kind of we saw from the Avalanche, and I'm going to go with a 7-2 victory for the Oilers with Mr. McDavid scoring 2 power play goals.
They've both been pretty resilient teams, so it's kind of interesting. I will give Edmonton that. They've been resilient, and so is Florida. So it's not even close to over, even if Edmonton wins.
Not even close to over is the best way to put it. And that's exactly how the opposite way that I would describe this podcast. This podcast is very close to over. And with that, I want to thank the 476 live viewers we currently have and send you folks on over to milehighhockey.com. And please give us a follow on your preferred social media platform. You can follow us at all caps MHH_lab and at Mile High Hockey. Give a follow to my friends here, Ezra, Evan, Jackie, and Brennan as well. Brennan and Evan, keep up the good work over there at Hockey Mountain High. Really liked your article, Brennan, on Ross Colton potentially being 2C just a couple days before we got an answer on 2C. But I did like the read. And folks, just keep coming back to us here at the Mile High Hockey Lab because we sure do love having you. Until next time, go Avalanche. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning into the Mile High Hockey Lab.